Suck it up and pay up, fellas. We made a deal.
You kidding me? You come in here. You're serious. There's how you said you would normal credit loss event with the appreciable write down. Matt's a little butler boy, you butt.
Are you done?
I think so, yeah.
God, I pulled a muscle in my back. You know what?
This clip from The Big Short is something that has stuck in my mind ever since I first saw it. In the scene, you have Jared Vennett, portrayed by Ryan Gosling, getting chewed out by a team of traders who are his clients. He has sold them on a trade that was supposed to appreciate in value, and it hasn't. So these guys are very upset about that, and they're ripping into him. And Gosling? Well, he's as cool as a cucumber. Coolest guy in the world. He sees a bunch of morons yelling at him and takes none of it personally, and reacts with the best line.
Are you done?
I think so, yeah.
Getting yelled at. It's just a really bad experience. I know if someone is yelling at me, I start feeling very angry and I want to yell back, but hindsight being 2020, I found that yelling back is never the right answer. It only accelerates the problem, the argument, whatever is going on. It's not going to get any better with two people freaking out rather than just one. You see, the yeller is freaking out because they don't feel in control and they so desperately want to. But what the yeller doesn't want you to recognize is the fact that yelling is a sign of weakness. Yelling is your invitation to take control of the situation and de-escalate it. If they're yelling and you're not, guess who's actually in control? You. The other day, I had the extreme displeasure of overhearing a phone call where somebody was absolutely laying into a customer service representative, screaming at them that they better put their supervisor on the phone and that their service isn't acceptable and that they had better fix the problem, as if the customer service rep was the person responsible for digging up the street and installing the fiber optic connections. That got me thinking about how that customer service rep is a person, just like any of us, who needs the tools necessary to handle a situation like that. Not just the tools needed to feel okay getting yelled at and not to take it all so personally, but the tools necessary to take control in that situation and diffuse it rather than have it blow up. But just so we're clear, this video's advice is presented in the context of something similar to a work setting. If a person walks up to you on the street and just starts screaming at you, just remove yourself from that situation. Don't stir that up. This is specifically for if someone is yelling at you, if someone is angry at you but expressing themselves in a more collected way than just yelling, then that is a larger situation to be dissected. The kind of scenario we're talking about is like how I overheard this person berating a customer service representative, or maybe you have a coworker or a relative who is prone to outbursts. The person yelling at you might be a person that you need to maintain a relationship with. You might not be able to go scorched earth and burn your bridge with them, so we need to figure out how to de-escalate those scenarios. We've all been yelled at before and we all know it's terrible, so let's find out how we can handle those situations. First thing you've got to recognize is that yelling is just a dynamic of the human voice. That's all it is. It's just that they turned up their volume knob. It doesn't make what they say any more or less valid. What the yelling tells you about the yeller is that they feel a lack of control. They feel frustrated. They feel fear. They feel multiple weak emotions in a big way, and they're having a hard time expressing themselves. Odds are that the yeller is not thinking through their statements. They're using simple language. Perhaps they're repeating themselves a lot, and they've lost the ability to say what they want. So they're just saying what they can, only very loudly. Yelling can be a red flag that a person needs some form of assistance. They're yelling because they don't know what to do. They're yelling because they want to be heard. So if you think about it in this way, a person yelling is actually a person just asking for help, asking for assistance, asking for control. I've made this little list. It's a 3-step process that you can go through in your mind when you want to take control in a situation where you have someone yelling at you and you want to de-escalate the situation. You'll notice that this list is a set of procedures that happens nearly entirely in your mind. Only the last step is to react. So when you're dealing with a yeller, take your time to be very sure of your words and actions, because a misstep might lead to escalation rather than de-escalation. So the first thing we do when we're in a situation with a yeller is to collect yourself. Cooler heads prevail. This is why I included that clip from The Big Short at the beginning of this video. If someone is hollering at me, I really try to recall that image of Ryan Gosling, cool as a cucumber, listening to what they're screaming about and just hearing through the noise. Now, this is much easier said than done. When emotions are high, likely you're going to feel whipped up as well, but the first second someone starts yelling, you need to train yourself to realize, hey, someone is at a mental breaking point. When you hear yelling, that should be your trigger to switch from your current state, your work, whatever you're doing, into an analytical state. Analyze the lead up to the current situation and start approaching it like a mechanic, ready to diagnose the problem. Mark Twain said to never argue with an idiot because they'll take you down to their level and beat you with experience. This is why I don't respond to the trolls in the comments. I feel like when you're working on de-escalating a yeller, you've got to stonewall them. Totally blank face, we're all Ryan Gosling. Say it with me, we are all Ryan Gosling. Be as cool as Ryan. If you keep a blank face, the yeller might even get a little confused, but at least you're not going to do something that might escalate them, like smirk or something like that. Being silent and stonewalling them is kind of like killing them with kindness. If they're screaming because they want to get a rise out of you, just don't give it to them. Maintain the upper hand by remaining calm. And if they're screaming because they're dying to be heard about something, then a calm, blank face gives them the impression that they have a captive audience who is actively listening to their needs. During this first step, collecting ourselves, another tip is to try to avoid cursing. This is a really difficult one, but if you can maintain your composure and speak without sinking to their level of shouting or swearing or intimidating, then you will maintain the upper hand. You will have nothing to regret. You will have nothing to apologize for. Cooler heads prevail. Embody Ryan Gosling. Say it with me. We're all Ryan Gosling. If you can maintain the high road by not yelling, not cursing, not berating them back, then you have the stronger position in the conversation. Without saying a single word, you are communicating that you are in control of the situation. Your calm, collected body language demonstrates that, hey, nothing's wrong, everything's okay, I've got everything I need. The yeller is a loud, petulant mess, and they want something from you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be yelling. You have the upper hand if you can maintain your cool. Now trust me, I recognize that all of this is so much easier said than done. I've blown up in conversations, I've yelled back, but I know that each of those times I eventually felt regret for not being the first person to offer to make the steps to rectify things, because yelling just never helps anything. The second step of the process is to recognize why they are yelling. They're likely yelling for one of two reasons. You've made a mistake and they're angry about it, or they're reacting irrationally to something and they're yelling at you for no good reason. Both are a cry for assistance, and you can be the person who helps them through their emotional distress. If you do so, there is a good chance that the argument can be salvaged and built upon rather than become a disconnect in your relationship together. In the first scenario, they're yelling at you because you made a mistake and they're really angry about it. There's really not too much you can do to avoid the brunt of their yelling. If it truly was a mistake you've made, then you've just got to own up to it. It's not easy advice, it's not fun advice, but people screw up at work all the time. I have, tons of times. Your boss has, tons of times. And if you say that you've never made a mistake at work, then you're lying. Mistakes are part of the learning and improving process, and at some points along the way, you might be learning and improving with a yeller shouting at you. But at least you probably won't make that mistake again. If it's a mistake you made that has the yeller screaming, let them get it out of their system and don't try to offer up any excuses, because people hate excuses. Nobody wants to hear, oh, well, I didn't do it because they gave me so much work to do, or, oh, the model didn't work out because the system screwed it up, or, oh, I forgot about it because they changed the system on me. No. Just stay quiet, stay stony, stay Gosling, baby. And remember that everybody has taken their licks from time to time. It's like the end of Inglourious Bastards. Aldo the Apache says, nah, more like chewed out. I've been chewed out before. Every great person in the history of time has been chewed out, and now you are being added to their ranks. Congratulations. So we're not offering up any excuses, and actually being honest and straightforward and saying, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'll do X, Y, and Z to rectify it, is a position of confidence. And it demonstrates confidence to the yeller, and also gives them zero ammunition to yell about. If you offer up an excuse, then they've got a new tangent to berate you about. But if you simply nip it in the bud and say, you're right, I totally screwed up, and now I know to change that, then you're letting the yeller know that they've been heard and they don't have anything more to go on about. Now that was the first scenario. They're yelling because of a mistake you made. If you recognize that it's the second scenario, that they're yelling at you for no real reason, they're just overreacting to something, maybe they're trying to get a rise out of you, then we have to be a little more analytical and offer a bit more of a helping hand. This is when you really have to go zen. We're talking, you gotta go full Gosling here, and we're listening through the yelling to really listen to what they're trying to say. They might be shouting and swearing and repeating themselves, but there's some little gem in there that shows what needs of theirs aren't being met. Go Gosling, cut through the noise, and let them shout it out while you take control of the situation mentally and plan how you can satisfy their needs and de-escalate the situation. Now, a person who is yelling in overreaction can be easy to shoot down. They're yelling because they're being a big baby. Well, still try to work your empathy skills a bit. It's still a cry for help. Yelling is not a normal thing. There is something wrong that is bothering this person, even if they're completely overreacting or blowing it out of proportion. Maybe you can be the person who helps them out. They could come out of the situation thanking you for it. If you can be the person who helped them out in a tough time, then it backs into the whole idea of creating value for yourself by being valuable to others. You just proved your worth, and now you have another person who values you and your skills highly. And as a result, they'll have more confidence in you and know that you are a person who helps. That can be extremely valuable for your future success. The third and final step of our list is to react proactively. Chris Voss, in his amazing book, Never Split the Difference, speaks frequently about something I've mentioned a lot in this video: de-escalation. When he's in a negotiation, he says he likes to escalate to get just over the level where his opponent is, and once he's in control, then he uses that superiority to de-escalate the situation down. That's the step where we're at in our process now. We remained calm and expressed mental superiority without angering the yeller, and we've analyzed this situation to see why the person is yelling. And now it's time to de-escalate the situation by reacting appropriately and proactively. What we want to do is take the focus off of you and show that you've already put thought into improving the situation. This essentially distracts the yeller. They're yelling at you, and by reacting proactively, you're effectively saying, hey, forget about me, here's the things we have to do to fix the problem. This runs in parallel with what Chris Voss wrote in his book about what he calls tactical empathy. He says that empathy is the ability to recognize the perspective of a counterpart. But he says that tactical empathy is just one step beyond that. Tactical empathy is the ability to recognize your counterpart's perspective and to use that to hear what is behind those feelings, so that you increase your own influence in the remainder of the conversation. It sounds a little confusing, but what we're basically saying is that you're going to be listening to the yeller's needs and doing your best to identify their real motivation for their outburst. Maybe they're not actually mad at you, but they're taking out some personal frustrations on you, and you're just unfortunate collateral damage. Whatever their motivation is, Chris says that if you can help label their pain for them, it will go a long way to the two of you seeing eye to eye. Labeling their pain, this is something I'll get to in a minute. So your first priority when you're reacting proactively to a yeller should be to reassure them that you hear them. Of course, you literally hear them because they're shouting, but rather you need to let them know that their needs are being heard. You want to use positive, affirmative language. Lots of yes, of course, absolutely. They want to feel appeased, so don't be shy in using positive language. It'll go a long way. If you compare this to the reaction you'd get from using language like, yeah, well, maybe, you're almost right. No, affirmative language is the way to go. And then once they're over their initial outburst and you can open a dialogue with them, you want to label their pain. Chris recommends using language to suggest possible pain points to them. Things like, it sounds like you're having a problem with the new system, or it sounds like the switch hasn't been easy for you. Even if your suggestion isn't correct, you're showing to them that you want to talk about their problems. Thus, their needs are being heard. If they correct you, no, it hasn't been the switch to the new system, it's been the lack of communication about it. Then they're following you down that path of labeling their pain. You are helping them diagnose and improve their problems, and they will recognize subconsciously that you are the helper. And the last tip in this section is to include them in the response. So you've helped them label their pain. Now see if you can think through the first next step for them. Okay, we identified this issue. What is the path to rectify it? If they were yelling at you for a mistake you made, then say, you know what, I recognize I made a mistake here, and the first thing I'm going to do is resubmit that file. Just something so they know that you're doing what you can to improve the situation. If they've been overreacting to you, then you can give them a suggestion for a first step to help ease the pain that you helped label. If you can give them a suggestion for a first step, then you're compounding their knowledge of the fact that you listened to them, and you're giving them actionable advice, which likely is what they were looking for in the first place. So let's recap. The first step with handling a yeller is to collect yourself. Channel Ryan Gosling, be the epitome of a cool head. Listen past their volume to hear what they're complaining about. The second step is to recognize why they are yelling. Are they yelling because you made a mistake? Well, then it's time to own up to it and appease them. Are they taking something unfair out on you? In that case, analyze to the best of your ability what actually has them feeling so upset. And the third step is to react proactively. Express your empathy to them to reassure them that they are being heard. Label their pain, which gives them something to focus on, and it helps them start the steps of making progress. And lastly, suggest the next steps for them so you reinforce that you are on their side and you help them feel productive. And if you've helped the situation entirely, congratulations. You've just proven your value to another person in the world, and your check will be in the mail. As Stephen Covey wrote in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand, then be understood. When we're dealing with someone who is emotionally overcharged, they are dying to be understood. So we must reassure them that they are understood. And that is what yelling boils down to. Let the upset party know that they're being heard and do what you can to help them. And who knows, maybe it'll come back in time to help you. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, then please share it with a friend who you think would find it valuable as well. Do you think this video will help you out, or maybe you just want to yell at me? Let me know in the comments down below. Please slam the like and subscribe button, and if you want to know more about what I'm thinking about on a day-to-day basis or what I'm reading, then follow me on my Instagram. And seriously guys, I'm working on new videos all the time, so please give that subscribe button a click so that when those come out, you will be in the know. It really helps the channel grow, and that's what we're trying to do here, is build a community of people focused on success, focused on improving ourselves, and then we can all grow our success together. So that's it for right now, but I'll see you in the next one.